Alright, as you know, for the past 2 lessons I've been talking about what I'm calling the 5 essential blues boxes for guitar. And as promised, I'm going to start getting into more detail into each of the boxes. Today, I'm going to look at box 1 that I'm calling the root box. I am going to talk about, first of all, just review again the structure, the kind of boundaries of this box. I'm going to review some common riffs. And then in the more detailed lesson that you can purchase at steviesnacks.com, I'm going to talk about some of the kind of like the, what's the term I'm looking for, the dual personality of the root box. There's ways that you can get different sounding riffs out of this box, but that's going to take a little bit more time than I can do in this lesson. So the full detailed lesson will be available at steviesnacks.com, but you should be able to get some pretty useful information out of the free lesson as well. So without any further ado, let's get into talking about the root box. I would also like to add that I am, as usual, tuned down half a step on all strings, what we call E-flat tuning. I know that this is not common, this is just the way that I play. It's something that I picked up a long time ago because I was trying to play like Stevie Ray Vaughan. For those of you who are not tuned down to E-flat, all you need to do is look at where my hands are on the fretboard and just put your hands down 1 fret lower and you'll be in the exact same tuning that I am. I'm not going to do anything in open tuning today because that would make it too hard. But I wanted to mention that because I got a lot of questions about my tuning. Alright, first let's review the structure, or what I call the boundaries of the root box. I'm going to be playing in the key of A flat. If you're in standard tuning, you'll want to drop down a half step so that it'll sound the way I do, but I'm going to be playing here on the 5th fret. And if you remember from the previous lessons, the boundaries of box 1 simply go like this. Now, key thing to realize here is that just because those are the boundaries of the box, don't mean that that's what you need to play your riffs on. For example, I'm sure you've heard songs where people have done riffs at... But you don't get very much color in your playing that way. I mean, it's very basic. You're sticking very much to just the blues scale there. And there's an awful lot more that you can do. So let's talk for a second about different bends that you can do within this box. Well, obviously the first one that comes to mind, and probably one of the most useful blues bends you can do, is on this note. This note is most often bent up like that as you go into a riff like this. That's from the first lesson that I taught. You also have another riff. So there's an awful lot of riffs that you can do that involve bending this note. Same can be said for this note right here. In Texas Flood, Stevie does this a lot. Let's see, the top note here is also very useful for bending. There's actually not too many riffs that end or use this note directly. It's a lot of times used as part of a bend. This note in particular here is a good note to end riffs on, as long as you are on the 1 chord of the 12-bar progression. Some common riffs that you can play in this box include... I'm just going to go through these slow. I'll probably teach lessons on each of these in the future. This is from the first lesson I ever taught on Stevie Snacks. You can throw a little... And here's a good example of where sometimes it's necessary to break the blues scale for the sake of playing a riff. Stevie Ray Vaughan did this a lot. and other times he would do, and sometimes he would do them back to back. Or, so those are just two examples of why you can't stay specifically to the blues scale if you want to play some pretty cool riffs. Let's see here. What else do we have? Another way that Stevie would sometimes do this riff would be to slide from here. All right, let's talk about the bottom notes. Now you can tell right away one very useful note is that particular note there, and the reason that note's really useful is because it helps you with situations where the timing is wrong to just do. You can throw this note in there. Kenny Wayne Shepherd plays that kind of riff a lot. Just a little hammer on right here. This note right here, very bottom note of the box, as well as this note, are both just an octave apart on the root note of what key you're playing in when you're playing in this box, as well as the top note here. As a result, they're very good notes to end riffs on when you are on the one chord of this progression. Most often these notes down here, that's probably the most common use for them. And that's something that's used in a lot of, whether it be a swing song, I know Pride and Joy has some things that kind of use that pattern. But that's, I mean, there's not a whole lot of other riffs that you play here. It's mainly used for that kind of walk down to kind of wrap up a sequence. Let's see, what else do we have inside the first box? Well, let's talk about chords. Obviously, this bar chord, get a better perspective here, that is the root chord of whatever key that you happen to be in when you're using this box. At the same time, though, you also have, which is a 7th version of that chord, and that's still contained within the one box, although it does. It's why another example of why you can't just rely on the blues scale to form all your chords and riffs and stuff. Alright, that wraps up the free version of this lesson, but I want to give you a preview of what I talk about in the extended version, which you can buy at steviesnacks.com. In that version, in the extended version, I'm going to be talking about how you can transition out of Box 1 into Box 2. I'm also going to talk about the connection between Box 1 and Box 5 and the ways you can get in and out of from Box 5 to 1 and 1 to 2 and so on. The other thing that I'm going to be talking about is kind of the secret double life that Box 1 has been living as a major scale box, not just a minor blues box. And what I mean by that is I'm going to explain how you can get riffs like this, B.B. King style riffs, out of the same box using some kind of hidden notes inside of Box 1. So I hope you have learned how to use Box 1 effectively, and if you want even more detail, please head over to steviesnacks.com and buy the downloadable version. It will definitely be worth your money. Alright, let's move on to how you get in and out of Box 1 as you solo. The first logical place that you want to go after Box 1 is to Box 2. And the easiest way to transition is just simply through a riff like this. and immediately you find your hand in position for box 2. And that way you can move on to some Albert King style riffs like that. You can also get to box 2 through this little chord. This is a very common, that's a very common highway between these two boxes. As a matter of fact, you can actually kind of take the main road here and come back the back road. So you kind of got a circle here. Slide up on the 2nd string, down on the 3rd string. That's a good exercise for tying the two boxes together. I'm going to slow that down a little bit to make sure that you can see that. Slide up on the 2nd string. Slide down on the G string. Let's see. Another way that you can get from box 1 to box 2 is simply through... You can as you're up here on one of these riffs, you can just kind of slide up on the top string, but you have to be a little bit more careful when you do that because it will sound jerky if you just slide up too soon. Alright, so that's a pretty good, should give you a pretty good idea how to transition from box 1 into box 2 and how to come back down again. Let's talk about box 5 here. Now, some people have asked why I model box 5 as a major scale box instead of the minor scale box, and I'll get to that when I talk more about box 5. There's really not too many good ways that you can transition from the major scale you can transition from box 5 into box 1 pretty easily, but it's not quite as easy to go back unless you do some of the things that I'm going to be talking about next, which involve the... So I'm going to come back to transitioning from box 1 to box 5 after I cover the kind of split personality or the secret double life of box 1. Alright, this is what I'm calling the secret double life of box 1. And you've always been shown that box 1 is it's a very kind of aggressive, mean-sounding blues box. But I also taught that box 3 is kind of a more happy-sounding, major-scale blues box. But the secret double life of box 1 is that it has box 3 as kind of a hidden box inside of it. The way that this can be accomplished is just by taking the shape of box 3 and overlaying that on box 1. Now, reminder, box 1, the boundaries of it are... And what we're doing is taking the boundary, we're coming in one fret. All of a sudden, when you start doing your riffs there, you get more of a kind of happy sound to your riff. Sometimes you can mix them up a little bit. The other riff that ties in with these two, the other note that goes along with these two notes is this one right here. The reason that's important is because the difference between the major scale and the blues scale is that the major scale incorporates this major third here, whereas the blues scale drops this major third a half step. Instead of. So by bringing this note back into play, it gives us the ability to play. You can play the standard bar chord here at the end, instead of the way a lot of players get stuck in just playing the minor version of this box. And when you start to incorporate this note, it opens up a new world of possibilities to you. So there's a good example of playing a minor or a major scale riff back to back with a minor scale riff. Slide into this new major third here, and then just throw a kind of a seventh version of the 4 chord. So I'm going up on the major version and coming down on the minor version. So I think the real key to being a well-rounded guitar player is being able to combine the major and the minor boxes fluently to give you a more well-rounded sound. A lot of players that emulate Stevie Ray Vaughan's style get stuck in just doing the. And while Stevie stuck to those kind of patterns a lot, if you pay real close attention to his live performances, there was a fair amount of time where he would mix in some of the major scale equivalents, and it was very subtle, but it gave his style a well-rounded edge to it that some people miss when they try and copy what he's been doing. So I mentioned before that I was going to move on to later, moving from Box 1 to Box 5, and the reason I put it off a little bit was because it was important to realize that Box 1 kind of had an alter ego, which was the major box living inside of it. Once you know that, you realize that, well, Box 5, as I've outlined it, is a major scale box itself. And major connects to major very well here. A little riff that you can do here on the 1 is in the 1 box, and then you can slide down and you're kind of bridging the boundaries of Box 1 and Box 5. So that's one way that you can get from here so kind of in the same way that you connected to Box 2, you can transition on the G string here. And I'll cover more of those hammer-on chords in a later lesson. Stevie would sometimes, during a Life Without You, would walk up and then he would move right into a it takes some careful doing to kind of mix the major scale and minor scale riffs there. But once you get used to it, it allows you to play a lot more variety in your soloing, and it kind of gives you some extra options that you have to choose from. So I hope that gives you a more complete understanding of Box 1, the role that it serves, and gives you some more tools how to move in and out of it, as well as utilizing it to its full capabilities, which include the kind of major box hidden inside of it. I'll be moving on to Box 2 next, and we'll cover some pretty cool Albert King riffs inside of there, and we'll talk more about how to transition back from Box 2 to Box 1, and from Box 2 into Box 3, which I call the BB King box. Until then, have some fun with this.